Hello and welcome. Today we have Marvel Rivals Season 2 Characters Tier List. I'll be going over the characters based on my experience with them as teammates, as well as how I think they are as an overall character. So first, Adam Warlock. Now, Adam Warlock's probably one of my least favourite characters to get on the same team with. His healing is okay, I find. I find the main issue is he's quite a difficult character to play, and most people who play him don't really know how to play the character. I get that maybe in high elos he might be a lot better, but definitely in the rank I play, he's never really any good. The highest rank I've got to is Grandmaster 3, and in the reset I was reset to gold and now I'm back to plat 2, and in plat lobbies he's still not the strongest, so I will put him as C tier. I see the merit in maybe having him as a third support, but if you're going to run him as a second support, yeah, there's not really enough healing going on, and not ideal. Black Panther. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of dive characters, but a good Black Panther can definitely be annoying. I see the merit in running one dive character on the team, but when you've got two, it just means that you don't have the damage to either deal with shield characters, or if the opponents are diving your supports, that it just leaves it up to the tanks solely to protect them. So Black Panther I'm gonna put as, I definitely see the merit in dive, so I will put Black Panther in A. Next, Black Widow. Most of the time you see a Black Widow, you know it's going to be a throw pick. If you pick someone and they're insane on her, then that definitely ups her in value. But for the most part, like, Hawkeye exists, and Hawkeye is just a lot stronger of a hero. So I will be putting her in D tier. Next, Hulk. Hulk is a very strong tank, and there's a good reason that he gets banned a lot, as well as Groot. Your average Hulk player. Hulk players can be good, they can also be bad. But I will put him in A tier, just above Black Panther. Captain America. There can definitely be some insane Captain America players. I've played against them, and it's not ideal to go against them. They can cause so much havoc. On average though, I would say B tier. They can be good, but for the most part they're not very good. I still think having the two tanks on the front line is the way to go, and with characters like Cap, they're not really a frontliner, they're mainly supposed to just dive the back line, cause some havoc, and get out. So I think for weakening your overall frontline push, I don't think it's worth it. Cloak and Dagger. Out of the supports, I do think that Cloak and Dagger is a very versatile pick, in terms of it's the main pick that people who don't play support much will go for, or there'll be support mains who have played them for ages and know the strengths. So I will put Cloak and Dagger in A, in between Hulk and Black Panther. Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange got a lot of nerfs coming into the season, and a lot of people think that like, he's been washed, but I still think in terms of shield tanks, he's still very much up there. And as much as I see a lot of people like Magneto a lot, there's definitely more consistent Doctor Strange players I've seen than Magneto. So I will put Doctor Strange still as a solid A tier in front of Black Panther. Now, Emma Frost. I would say easily one of the first S tiers we have on the list. Her grab abilities and mainly being a very good anti-dive character, I think is what sets her apart from the other tanks. The overall damage output she can put is insane. Having a crowd control ult as well is very useful, and also still having to be able to put up a shield without having to just stop what you're doing. I know her shield only has 500 health, whereas Strange's is 800, but the difference is with Strange that you just have to hold it up and can't be doing anything. And if your damage is behind you and shooting through, then it's fine. But if you're as Strange holding up the shield and the only ones shooting behind you are your supports because you've got dive characters on your team, then it's not really ideal. Strange's ult I still think is one of the best in the game, and I will say that Emma's ult is stronger and definitely gets work done. Groot, you always see him banned, but I still think that he is the strongest tank in the game. I like that he's got a lot more self-sustainability, whereas Emma, like, her diamond form's very strong, whereas when she's out of that, she is just quite vulnerable. Whereas Groot, with his iron wall, being able to overheal himself, having healing from the smaller walls when they damage enemies, being able to block off tanks from their support so they can't get healing is, yeah, and Groot is just very good. I don't think he's moving out of S. He does have an upcoming nerf coming where he's losing 100 health to his iron wall, but I don't think it's strong enough to nerf him into the ground yet. Hawkeye. Hawkeye can be really strong, and pretty much most of the Hawkeye players you do see are quite good, and I do think his potential to one-shot headshot is very strong. So, S tier. I personally struggle to play Hawkeye. I just don't think I have the aim for it, but that is something I will work on eventually. Being a long-range attacker, pretty much, if there's any flying character, he's dealing with them very easily, and there's not many other characters that can do that. I will say that the skill level to play him is a bit higher than others as well. Hela. S tier. Her ult is crazily strong. The fact that even if you shoot her out of it, she doesn't die is ridiculous. I will actually put her one rank above Hawkeye. The hit scan attack that she has, the fact that when you go to shoot people is literally instantaneous, definitely makes her one of the best damage, if not the best damage in the game. And I feel like you definitely see a lot of more better Hela players than you do Hawkeye, and when there's a good Hela player, you know that like you're not going to be able to outrange them. Your only really real chance is if you've got a dive character who can deal with them, like either Black Panther, Magik, or Spider-Man. Human Torch. So I do see that he's been buffed a lot, and he is very good, but I feel like the teammates wise I've got just aren't the best at showing how strong he is. So I will put him in A tier behind Doctor Strange. Flying characters, I feel like are good in some ways, but the fact that you can be going against a Hela or a Hawkeye as Johnny, who doesn't have the best mobility, I would say, does make him a lot easier to shoot out the sky as one of those two. His team up with Invisible Woman is very good, as it gives him the extra shield, but his team up with Storm is the fact you have to sacrifice 2 damage ults, which can kill through a decent amount of support ults, but having the coordination if you're not like on mics with the Human Torch and Storm just makes it that it's a useful team up, but doesn't get used enough. Also, you don't really see a lot of Storm players in general, as well, while we're on the topic of Storm, I do think Storm is a good character, but there's not too many characters that she's necessarily strong against. She's good for amplifying like damage as well as speed, which I do see the merit in. Has a very strong ult, but you don't really see many Storm players in general because she's not very strong against a lot of things. Like if they've got either group walls up or shields or anything, she doesn't really get enough damage done to deal with it. Against the other flyers like Iron Man and Human Torch, she doesn't really have the damage to be able to take them out. And her mobility, while she does get the speed boost that she can activate, isn't the best. I like that if you're at least keeping her near ground level, that her attacks do pierce through enemies. But overall, I would say that she is B tier. Invisible Woman. So, Invisible Woman is probably one of the strongest supports by a long way in terms of having the survivability of being able to turn invisible. Her healing is very high. She does have a very strong ult, and the fact you can use her ult as a barrier for anything outside of it as well, so they can't be shooting in from the outside. She does get her ult very quickly as well, I do find. And the only thing with her ult compared to Luna ult is Luna's ult, there's only a few things that can really kill a Luna ult in terms of Magneto or Iron Man, whereas Invis, even if you're inside her ult, you can be killed. So in terms of supports, I definitely think she's one of the top supports by a long way. Iron Fist. Now, pre this season, Iron Fist I would have put in like C tier. But this season they have just buffed him in like an insane level. So I'm gonna put Iron Fist at... Do I put him in A or do I put him in S? The problem I find is there's a lot of players who want to play Iron Fist at the moment, but don't necessarily have the skill to play him well. So I'll leave him in A tier. Iron Man. Iron Man I find really fun to play, especially if they have a triple support composition, as sometimes I'll just be playing against like their one damage being either Squirrel Girl or Moon Knight, who aren't very good at shooting out air. So I will put Iron Man as C tier. I do think Iron Man and Storm are pretty interchangeable in terms of where they're ranked at, but I do think Storm is better than Iron Man, and on average, like, you'll just see a lot of Iron Man players just shooting at the tanks especially, and just kind of really just farming their support ults. Jeff. Ooh, Jeff's an interesting one. A good dive Jeff, S tier, easily. But on average, most Jeffs are just doing their own thing and not really providing much support. So I will put Jeff in D tier next to Black Widow. I just find that his healing can be good in terms of having a very long range heal, and the bubbles around can help to prepare for fights. His ult, very strong, um, but in terms of most Jeff players, you just find that they do their own thing. In triple support comps, he does work well as a bit more of a aggressive support, as well as survivability. He's got good survivability, being able to go underground. Loki, I've definitely seen some insane Lokis, and I will put him in S tier as well. The only problem I have is the average Loki player isn't playing him as well as they'd be playing an Invis. So I'm going to leave Invis above Loki. He's very fun to play. His clones and like switching places with them, going invisible, ability to copy ults, like having an Invis on your team, being able to copy the Invis ult, or strong ults like Hela, where they're devastating, can be very good to get out a support ult from the enemy team. Also, if you have a Hela and Loki, if the Hela gets a kill just before the or just after the Loki's died, she can instantly res him, which is pretty strong. With how strong Dive is at the moment, especially with like Black Panther, Iron Fist, Magik, and even Spider-Man, Loki and Invis both have very good survivability against Dive. Adam's Soul Bond is useful, but he doesn't really have something to be able to run away from them as easily as Invis and Loki can. Luna is my support main, and I personally think that when I play and when I've seen other characters play, they can keep up with healing as Invis and Loki can, and your average Luna player will just be a solid healer, because usually people who aren't familiar with support or get forced onto support will just play Rocket or Cloak, and I do see the skill ceilings a bit higher on Luna, and I still think her ult is the strongest in the game. The only thing I think she struggles with is dive characters, and you might be able to get the snowball off, but if your team aren't supporting you, then if your team aren't supporting you with the dive, then your support is just going to get bullied. So I will put her in... Ooh. The thing is, I still think her ult is the strongest heal ult in the game, so I do think... Just on average player, I would put Luna above Invis. And I get that there's some Lokis that are just the best in the world, but on average, I just find that Loki players aren't as good as Invis or Luna. And the great thing about Luna is with her like clap attack thing, you can heal like a big group at a time, and she's very easy to get like high heal games on, I find. Also, the guard is very useful, so even if you are running a dive character, you can just heal your teammates who are nearby on the front line while also getting the dive characters, which I think is very unique and not a lot of people seem to appreciate. Also with her, we discovered that her guard also, if you put your guard on, like say your tank in the front line and they're taking a lot of damage, it also gives extra healing on top of the... So if you go to heal the person who has the guard on, you heal them more than they would without the guard. So that's why I put Luna in S. Magik. I think Magik is a stronger dive than Black Panther, and on average there's a lot more devastating Magik players than Black Panther. Dive is very strong this season, so I do think characters that are better against dive, like Emma, Groot, are very useful to be running, or having Hulk and Namor with the team up can also be good. I hate going against Magik players for the most part. Between Spider-Man Magik or Black Panther, I'd way rather go against. I'd say maybe I'd rather go against a Black Panther than a Magik, because as much as Black Panthers are faster, most of them aren't doing like as heavy damage as Magics can with their like almost one-shot combo. Magneto is still very strong this season, and I do see the merit in having a mag in terms of the shield being so strong. Or shield is very good for defending. The bubble can definitely, that takes a bit more skill. Let me rearrange the S tier a little bit. Switch that. Switch that. Only thing I find is comparing people with the different classes is the issue, because I wouldn't say Mag is the weakest S tier, but I still think Groot is the strongest tank, Emma second. Having a good Hela. Might do something like that for now. Mag's ult can also kill through a lunar ult, and can also be great for countering like other projectile attacks like Iron Man's ult, Punisher roll, or a lot of mags you'll just see just absolutely dunk their ult on Cloak and Dagger just as they come out of ult. So yeah, I think Mag definitely S tier. Out of the tanks, I think he is the weakest of these two who are up here. But yeah, on average, Mag players I do think are very good though, so I will leave it there. Mantis, oof, Mantis. I am not the biggest fan of Mantis, and I think she is alongside Adam in C. These two in triple support comps are better, but I would way rather have like either a Luna Invis, Luna Loki, Invis Loki over these two with it. I just find that the most people who play Adam or Mantis just won't really put out as much healing, and I get that on strategists like it's not healing numbers, but at the end of the day, if you see like one of these two on lower healing than these, you are gonna blame them. Mr. Fantastic, oof, last season I want to put him in C as well, but just like Human Torch, he has been very strong this season. I will say on average I think they're better players than Human Torch, and I do see the merit in having them around. Definitely with how strong Invis is, you get a nice team up with these three. So I do think it's good to have a Mr. Fantastic now. He is a little bit better for helping with countering dive characters like these three, but if they're playing off as a tank just in the front line, not focusing on what's behind them, it can be really detrimental if they just leave their supports behind. Let's see, Moon Knight. Oof. I'm not the biggest fan of Moon Knight players. I've definitely seen some that are decent, but most you could put in Moon Knight, Squirrel Girl, and Scarlet into the same bracket of the three like easy DPS to play. But just on average, I just find that Moon Knight players, I will say, better than Iron Man players, but I just find like there's so many who will only shoot the Unk, like farm for the ult, and that's about it, but won't hit anything else. Like if there's ever we're playing against a Human Torch or Iron Man, they're not hitting the air players that much. I just don't think I think he's an easy and can be fun character to play, but one trick Moon Knight and Squirrel Girl players, it always annoys me to have them on my team in ranked. You definitely see loads of Lord Moon Knights who think like, oh yeah, because I'm Lord, I'm good. But he is a very easy character to Lord, and I do think that's why you see them so often. Namor, oof. No bias, but as a Namor main, oh, I haven't really gone over who I main. For tank, I main Peni and Groot, and sometimes Emma. For DPS, it'd be Namor, Scarlet Witch, and Punisher. I was working on learning Hela, but with how strong Dive is at the moment, I've just been struggling to shoot out these like pesky Dive characters. So Namor I will put in S tier as well. On average, I think they're better players than Hawkeye. Maybe, I don't know if I'd put them above Hela players, but in terms of usefulness, I do think Namor is the most useful DPS in the game. And it's a good reason that he gets banned a lot. Like, his turrets get so much value, as well as if you are hitting his spears, he is putting out a solid damage, amount of damage. I will say his ult is weaker than these two though, as I think like his whale, as much as like hilarious, these two ults are just stronger in general. It combos well with other ults though, like if you get a Groot ult off into a Namor, very good. But yeah, I do think Namor is the strongest DPS still. Average player, I think, even if they do rely on the turrets are very helpful, and especially with the Hulk team up, it is very good. I still prefer the Luna Namor team up, and would love if they eventually made it that if you have like either a Namor Luna or Namor Hulk, you can pick between which turret you use. I know it'd be busted as hell if you could have both the Luna turret and the Hulk turret, but that's wishful thinking, of course, and I would fully accept just being able to have one of the, like, choose one or the other of these two as your team up. I feel like the Namor Luna team up was also better because there was a lot more people who play Luna than there was that play Hulk. Like, now you'll get a lot of Namor players who are like, oh, someone play Hulk, but not a lot of people are very good at Hulk. Hulk is a very difficult tank, and compared to these three up here, or even Doctor Strange. Peni's never been strong, and a lot of people put her as worst tank in the game, but I think that's safe for Thor, because Thor just is weaker than Cap, and Thor and Cap have pretty much the same role. Even Venom has a similar role to them. Peni, I would put, the average Peni player I would put in A. I don't think she's the best tank in the game by a long shot. So, where were we? Yeah, I do think Peni is a very solid tank. Her main case being if your supports carry on getting dived, just having an anti-dive extra, as the problem with Namor is Namor does get banned quite a bit, and your next best options for countering dive is either Emma or Peni, and I do think Peni does a good job at countering dive. The buff she got this season with the headshot damage being added for her, not being sent as far back if she shoots, and also the bonus health was very useful for her, I will say. Among these characters, I do think your average of these characters will be better than your Peni. I would rather have a Peni than a Cap, a Thor, or a Venom, so that's why she's here. Psylocke. Psylocke's an interesting one. I definitely see the potential, and with how strong Emma is at the moment, I do think she is among these characters here. I don't mind dive characters in general on my team, but I just don't like having two. So if we have like a Psylocke Magik, that just means there's no one protecting either support or providing frontline damage. Having the extra ability of having an extra clone because of Emma is strong. So I would put her. I do think your average Psylocke player is better than your average Human Torch, but Human Torch is just that strong that I would keep him above. I'd keep him and Mr. Fantastic above Psylocke. Rocket. Ooh. Rocket is S tier. In terms of being very easy to play, the fact his ult now heals as well, or at least gives you an overshield of like 100 to 150 extra health, is very strong, and anyone can pick up Rocket. I do think your average Rocket player isn't as good as like Loki, Invis, or Luna, but he is just a very strong character to have on your team. Now, Scarlet Witch, loads of people hate Scarlet Witch, think that she's a terrible character, but out of Scarlet, Moon Knight, and Squirrel Girl, I would definitely rather have a Scarlet Witch on my team, because at least I will put her with the Strange team up. I think she's an A. Without, I think she's a solid B tier. Reason why is her stun is very strong. The lock on aim is useful, as well as having the explosion L2 or left trigger, depending on what you're on for console. I do think the Strange team up is very strong in terms of being able to like break down shields, or if you catch a support off guard, you can kill them really easily. I think she's relatively decent against dive compared to Moon Knight and Squirrel Girl. She definitely helps to protect the supports a bit more. At least when I play, I aim to protect the supports more, either using the stun bubble or using the Strange team up. It is a shame that Strange is a bit weaker this season, so people have been playing him less, but you do definitely still see a decent amount of Strange players, so I feel like people should be using this team up more. It's definitely one of the strongest team up, or stronger team ups, and yeah, I think she's a solid B tier. The only thing I think that separates most Scarlet Witch players is whether or not you can get kills with the ult, and her ult is very like slow to set off, but if you can get it off and kill at least one or two people, it's very strong. If you can get one of their tanks or even one of their supports, being down a tank or support is major in this game. Spider-Man, I think he's top of everyone's ban list, so there's a good reason why he's the strongest dive character. I personally hate going against Spider-Man because he's ridiculously hard to track, and even as Namor, I do find that he can be hard to hit or get rid of. And if they are running multiple dive characters like either Spider-Man, Magik, just being Namor on its own, it just isn't enough. That's why, like, if you have a Namor Peni in comparison, then at least it slows down these lot from diving on you. Yeah, there's a good reason Spider-Man is the main first ban for any comp game, because they are just ridiculously good. If I see you on my team and you're trying to play Spider-Man, I'd rather just not have Spider-Man in the game. So yeah, you're probably still getting him banned. Like, I've played at least maybe 50 hours this season, and I still find that I've come across one Spider-Man on our team who was actually very good and did just carry the game. But the problem you got to consider is if you leave Spider-Man in, you also have to deal with an opposing team Spider-Man. And for some reason, every time the Spider-Man on the enemy team is just that much better. Squirrel Girl. There's a lot of one-trick Squirrel Girls, and I do think the Null's Essence map, she's very strong on that first point especially. Out of Squirrel Girl, Moon Knight, and Scarlet, I'd still way rather have a Moon Knight or Scarlet. I just think that there's a lot of people who play her because they think that like, oh, I can't play a DPS character. But if you're looking for a easy first DPS character to play, I would definitely say that Punisher's probably the best DPS character to learn first, in terms of most people who are coming from shooters. Just to have a full auto gun and a very pretty simple kit. His turret is definitely good if you can get some good positioning with it, so that you can help break it down. He's very good against if you come against a group matchup. His ult is very strong, but usually if I ult using him, I need to make sure that I'm behind the tank still, because he doesn't get extra health or anything when he's in his ult form. And although his ult form is very strong, if you can just be shot out of it quite quickly. Even in Punisher ult, I've been taken out by Hela ult. Even if I started the Punisher ult first, Hela can still two-shot you while you're in your ult form. Punisher's good against flyers, and I think he's a bit more beginner-friendly than, say, Hela or Hawkeye. He's also, good for breaking down shield composition, like shield tanks like Strange, or breaking down Groot walls, Emma shield. So I definitely think out of the beginner characters, he's definitely a lot better than Iron Man or Moon Knight, or Iron Man, Moon Knight, Squirrel Girl. I'd say he is a bit better at countering dive than Storm. I actually will move him up to B tier. Your average Punisher player will just get the numbers. The only problem is, if he's just damaging them but not getting any kills, then you are just feeding the support ult, so that's why I'm putting him bottom of B. Star-Lord. On average, I think Star-Lord players are good, but I don't really see him as that big of a threat. I would put him as top of B tier, but the only thing I find is his ult is definitely very strong. And that was another point I forgot to make. Squirrel Girl and Moon Knight's ults are easier to get off than Scarlet's ult, but the rest of their kits, I do think that Scarlet's stronger than these two. Star-Lord's ult is insanely good, and it's very hard to kill him out of it. That's why when you see a Loki copy the Star-Lord ult, you know that he's forcing out a support ult, and it can be very strong for that. It's auto-aim pretty much, and being able to like fly relatively high and be off the ground, your tanks won't be able to deal with him. He can just be a major issue, so B tier or maybe bottom of A is where I'd put Star-Lord. Things I think are very 50-50 whether or not they're good. Tanks wise, I think because of his ease of use, I would put him above Peni, in terms of, I definitely think that your average Thing player might be better than your average Peni. Thing can also help to deal with dive, in terms of if he's actually jumping on your supports in the back to give them the damage reduction. The main problem is that some Thing players do overextend. I will put him here above Peni, because you do get a lot of invis players as well, and having the extra overshield with Thing is a good team up to be utilizing. The only problem I think is with Emma, Thing, and Peni is they're not the best for solo tanking, or I don't think they can solo tank. And I definitely think if they have alongside them either a Groot, Magneto and Emma's a very strong tank team up to be running. Let's see. But yeah, I do think Thing is a strong character to be running. So I just don't think it works to have like either a Thing, Emma, or Peni with, say, a Thor, Cap, or Venom. Thor, I spoke about him a bit earlier. I do think he's the weakest tank in the game, because I'll put him in B tier. It's just, if you want to be doing the job that, as in a dive tank role, Thor is the weakest of Cap or Venom. Like, his ult's not very good. His being able to dash and like kidnap people is useful, but it's just not really as... I don't think he's as much of a threat in the backline as Captain America or Venom. He's got a bit of self-sustainability where he activates his other form. I can't remember the name. But I don't think Thor is as good as any of the other tanks. And in terms of... at least Peni has her role of being anti-dive, whereas him, he's like... I get that he's a dive character, but of the dive tanks, he's just not as good as Venom or Cap. So that's why he's here. If you are making use of having a Thor, Loki, and Hela, then I would put him in A. But for the most part, I just see a lot of Thor players who aren't very good, just diving around, not really doing much in comparison to a Venom or Cap. Venom, I think, is the strongest dive tank. The only problem I find with dive tanks as a general rule is you have to sacrifice, meaning that you're leaving one tank to defend the backline by themselves, and I don't think there's a lot of tanks who are able to do that. So that's why I still think it's a lot stronger to be running either like Groot Emma, Groot Mag, Groot Strange, Groot Hulk. I just think it's better to have... I guess you could also consider Hulk a dive tank as well, but he is stronger than Venom. And Hulk, the difference is his team up with Namor is one of the best in the game. And that's why I think he's a stronger tank than Venom. Venom's team ups with Peni and Spider-Man I do think are decent, but Venom can cause a lot of chaos to the backline if there's no Peni or Namor defending. So that's why I would put him as the second strongest out of the dive tanks, if you also consider Hulk a dive tank. I do see some Hulks playing around the objective though, alongside the other tanks, which I do think is useful to have. Venom's got very high survivability, even though if he's like pushed up too far, the fact he can just overshield, go back to half health is just incredibly strong. Winter Soldier, last season he would be S tier, but this season I will put him in A. He's stronger than these three as characters. People considered him good for anti-dive, but I think he's just not as good as he was last season. And I see a lot of Lord Winter Soldiers. Some of them can be very good at hitting the ults, but around that I'm not really seeing them do as much as like any of these damage I see on the team. I will put him on average above Iron Fist, because the problem I find is with these three is the people who do specialize on them are very good and very hard to deal with. But whenever I see a Winter Soldier on the other team, I'm never really scared. His ult can be scary, but if people do just focus him, he can just be killed out of ult. Wolverine is very common to be banned, but I still think in like Plat Lobby, where I'm at the moment, there's not that many like insanely good Wolverines. I see the potential in him. I would still put him... the thing is, he can be good for taking out tanks, don't get me wrong, but I just see the average Wolverine player just not really doing their job if they are a Wolverine. I do think he's... I would say he is an A tier character, but the average Wolverine player I find is a B tier. They're not that much of a threat, especially if you do focus them. Like, obviously you can say if you focus anyone, they're not a threat, but I think that the ban is wasted on him a lot. I do think the Hulk ban I can understand a lot more. Loads of people ban Groot, and although, as you can see, he is at the top of my tier list, I don't think that Groot is like as much of a threat as say like a Spider-Man or like a Magik or Black Panther. So usually my top bans will always be Spider-Man, and I usually try and get rid of Hela because Hela, especially if they're a good Hela, no one's pretty much killing them unless you've got a dive who can jump the Hela. But being able to get up to the Hela if there's not anyone else protecting her is the thing. Right, would I make any changes here? I don't think so. I think everyone's in. I don't think anyone is like insanely bad that they're unplayable. D tier is why I have Black Widow and Jeff here. Just on average, I don't think the players are that good. You do get some insane dive Jeffs, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, I don't think they're very good or very useful. The Jeff ult I still think is stronger, hence I've put him above Black Widow. Mantis and Adam, I just think are they have their use in the game, but they're not very strong in comparison to any of the supports up here. Like, you have these 4 supports to pick from, so I don't understand why you're picking either Adam or Mantis. Like, I guess some people think like, oh yeah, I'm being different picking these 2, but is it really worth it to be doing less healing, and the ults from them aren't as strong as any of these. Adam's ult can be game saving, but the thing you gotta consider is if it was a full health heal, like a start of Overwatch Mercy Res, then he would be higher. But the fact it only spawns you back with like 100 health, and if he doesn't heal you straight away, or he doesn't bring back one of the healers, you're not going to be full health going into a fight. You pretty much just fed them another kill. Squirrel Girl is here because out of the damage, I just think there's a lot of like one-trick Squirrel Girls who can't play, who only either just play Squirrel Girl, Scarlet, or Moon Knight. And these 3, I will say Scarlet's still better, and I would rather Scarlet player on my team than one of these 2. But yeah, I do think her ult's pretty funny, and the fact that like if it bounces off walls, it can just 2-shot supports like nothing. Like, just goes through them once, hits the wall, bounces back, gets them. It's so annoying to die to, but it can just be strong. Iron Man's here because his ult, while it did start as one of the strongest ults in the beginning of the game, it just didn't really see it through. Moon Knight's here because his ult's strong, and the unks can get some good value, but for the most part, I do think they just aren't very good players, and they just rely on the unk too much to get any damage done at all. Thor's here because, like I said, he's the weakest of the dive tanks. His only real team up is the Hela Loki one. It was useful to have the Storm Thor one because at least then you've got another team up for them. I don't understand why some characters do just have like multiple team ups with different characters, whereas some are just limited to the one. It would be nice to see at least 2 team ups, or the fact that some, like for example the Luna Jeff, she gives Jeff the ice powers, but she gets nothing back really from it. The Luna Iron Fist isn't bad, but I think it's going next season. So, well, actually no, I think her Jeff one might be going next, coming up, because the Venom Jeff one's going to be a thing. Punisher, I think, is here, definitely one of the better beginner-friendly DPS, and yeah, I'd put Storm next. I do like having a Storm on the team, but preferably just not against a dive. Like, against dive, she can't really give you that much assistance as, say, having like a Mr. Fantastic or Namor, like, or even characters like Iron Fist. If they are just protecting their backline, or even Winter Soldier, they will give more value than, say, having a Storm there. Cap, I think your average Cap player, yeah, is a 50-50 whether or not they're good or bad. He's definitely difficult to play, don't get me wrong. So I think in terms of, I think he's in a good place here. Wolverine, I definitely think, like, yeah, sure, your number one Wolverine player may be insane, but your average Wolverine in the ranks I play at just isn't that strong. Scarlet Witch, I still think is, I would say if you want the easiest damage to learn, then Scarlet Witch is definitely the one, and then Punisher second following. And I still think she gets more value than these two. Star-Lord is here because ult very strong. I think his kit takes a little while to learn, but if you do learn it and are proficient on it, then yeah, he's solid here. I would even consider putting him in A, but just to flesh out B a bit, I think he's here. I definitely think he's top of B, maybe low A. Venom, I do think useful, so I think he's in a good spot here. Peni, I do think just for the anti-dive especially is very good. Like if I'm going against a Cap, Thor or Venom, I know that at least with Peni I can cause them a bit of issue. The stun, being able to stun people out of ult is very useful. The amount of Scarlet Witch ults I stop is funny. Same with if I stop Strange ults. Thing, for being able to just dive on his teammates and have the overshield, I definitely think he's in a good spot here. I would actually consider moving into S, but yeah, no, I think the S is pretty solid how it is. Iron Fist still useful, so I do think he's a good spot here. Winter Soldier here, I think makes sense. Yeah, I think Winter Soldier's in a good spot here. Black Panther, Magik, Psylocke and Spider-Man. I would put all four dive pretty much together. Human Torch and Mr. Fantastic I do think are strong damage. I just think on average there's a lot of Human Torch players who can't play him, and whereas on Mr. Fantastic, especially if the healers are healing him, he can just be very hard to kill. Doctor Strange I still think is A tier. Last season he definitely would have been S. Cloak I do think is still a strong healer, but I do think compared to these other four she's just not as good. Hulk I still think is here because of how hard he is to play. I think that's what lowers him compared to the other tanks here. Rocket, very easy healer to play, so definitely under spot here. Mag's definitely a solid tank, so under place here. Loki, just an all-round pretty solid and fun healer to play. I just find that you get some Lokis who aren't just doing enough healing and mainly just focusing on damage. Hawkeye, Hela, just both long-range threats that, if not dealt with by one of these dive, just are too strong to be going against. Namor, turrets are too good, especially with the Hulk team up. Turrets help with dives so much because you don't even have to aim and they'll deal with them a bit. And his spears, as long as you're not going for too ridiculously long range spears, you can get a lot of value from it. Invis and Luna, the two best supports in my opinion on average. I do think are in a good spot here. Emma and Groot, the two strongest tanks, I do think they've definitely earned their spot here at the moment. I do think it will be an interesting change when Ultron gets added for supports. I'm hoping it will help with the support strike, and having maybe a support that can fly a bit, similar to like Star-Lord, would be cool. And I'm hoping these two do get buffed a bit, and same with Jeff. I still think he needs some buffs to have some better value. But yeah, this is my tier list for season 2 at the moment, and yep, look out for more gameplay videos I will post at some point, or discussing on Rivals topics. I'll also be doing my Road to Celestial video, as last season I only had time to get to Grandmaster 3, but I will aim for Celestial this season as I've been playing a bit more, I've mainly just been playing quick play when I don't have someone to duo queue with for ranked, so mainly just been working on my lords. So my lords so far being Peni, Namor, Scarlet Witch. I've got Centurion on Luna. I'm about halfway through her Centurion rank. I've got Captain on Groot and Emma, which will probably be my next two tanks to do. Next support, I'm kind of torn between Rocket. I've already got Captain, so I might do Rocket next, followed by either Loki or Invis. For DPS, I will probably work on Hela a bit more. And I've already got Punisher Captain as well, so maybe Punisher at some point. I don't think I'll go for Lord on every character in the game, but I do like playing through and earning the Lords, as I do think the icons are very cool for some of these, which I will go over at some point. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe for more.